This presentation is about a documentary film entitled Watermark that is currently being developed within the context of the international project Paper Trails, Post-Industrial Histories, Technical Memories and Art Practices in Tomar. This project aims at creating a discussion forum for conceiving reconversion and reconfiguration solutions for obsolete industrial settings. Likewise, it envisions to reflect upon the role of art practices in reconversion ventures.
Projects such as this have been triggered by the deindustrialization process that has been afflicting the Western world since the 1960s. Variables attached to the concept of certainty, such as job security, employee rights, and community identity, have been called into question in these transitional times. Nostalgia is then summoned as a way to fill the void, to ward off the anxiety of uncertainty, and to hold on to an idealized recollection of things past. This is particularly true in small cities such as Tomar, where the closing down of long-established industries has had a severe impact on the livelihood of the population and has pushed the city towards an urgent reinvention process. Focused on Tomar's paper industry, once a notorious industrial node in Portugal, Watermark ties together footage from home videos, interviews, photographs, and B-roll to tell a number of stories that mirror the effects of deindustrialization in the region, while intending to give the lead role to those who have witnessed and endured its effects the most.
However, with the filming process already underway, we are starting to realize just how hard it is to curb the social actors' urge to narrate accounts of pleasant remembrances while neglecting to expose the grievances of blue-collar tasks. A propensity that is also manifested by sponsors and collaborators of the project alike, since the industrial heritage label that graces sites such as these is filled with nostalgic sublime undertones that somehow interfere with a more factual approach.
Therefore, I, João Luz, as the director, and Hermínia Sol, as the producer, will describe the negotiation processes in which we have engaged in order to be true to the stories Watermark wants to tell, while simultaneously avoiding betraying the other actors' involved expectations. Despite the fact that the paper industry in Tomar goes back to the 18th century, it started to crumble in the second half of the 20th century. The closing of the last plant of the compound, Fábrica do Prado, took place in 2017 and signaled the end of the paper industry in Tomar. However, its massive and unoccupied industrial structures, which in some cases were quickly taken over by nature, bear witness to the industry's ghostly presence. In recent times, several artists have taken an interest in the remnants of industrial heritage as they embody a sense of resilience while complying with an aesthetics of decay that glorifies the industrial past and is very much in vogue in the urban explorer movement.
At the same time, deindustrialization has also caught the eye of prestigious American publishing houses, which have decided to capitalize on the public's nostalgic cravings for smokestack industrial America by publishing long-format past and present type books. They do so by presenting an uncritical version of the past, where tensions of gender, race, and class go unnoticed, one where the destructive impacts of industry on health and the environment are obscured. In many cases, it is also possible to witness an erasure of the human element in the photographs, thus giving full prominence to machines and, as a result, to the crude capitalist system in which they emerged without ever revealing the length of its crudeness and sometimes traumatizing effects. In addition, this nostalgia-filled and urban decay imagery becomes the prevalent discourse, while alternative viewpoints tend to be disregarded as they disturb the industrial mystique.
The decision of not following a nostalgic framework in the film was not an easy one to make, as we were aware of the vast majority of those which are cooperating in the making of the film are rooting for that kind of approach, including former workers as they aspire at returning to a period of certainty in their lives through the film. However, the approach adopted incorporates those who worked in the now abandoned premises, revealing their contribution and displaying the complexity of class and gender relations in an industrial plant. To do so, we invited the social actors to join us at the plant where they once worked. That is, we populated an already depopulated industrial site.
This film project resorts to in loco interviews so as to collect real-life experiences of those who were directly involved with the paper industry in Tomar. By adopting an oral history approach, we wish to promote the perspective of those who have witnessed facts firsthand, but that history tends to neglect. At the same time, by including first-person narrations, we expect to trigger empathy and a better understanding of the magnitude of the gradual erosion of this industry in the region.
In bodily terms, this return to home testified to the experience of a double discomfort. On the one hand, they were undergoing a trip to a place and time of harshness. Yet, on the other hand, this same trip also took them back to a time of certainty and of industrial grandeur, of which they can claim a piece. This was plainly perceived in the mementos they have chosen to share with the film crew. Paper samples and fountain pens are just a few examples of the objects that surrounded them daily and that are now material evidence of the work they once produced.
Being a project that deliberately started without a predetermined script, it largely depends on the stories that are going to be narrated by the social actors. The collection of raw data, video, audio, and photographic material entails its recurrent analysis through the viewing and annotation of segments, which, as a whole, are going to shape the film's narrative structure.
A decision was made to trust the immediacy of the first take as it better conveys the first on-time camera impact. The social actor's propensity towards digression and contradiction is finer captured, thus allowing for the emergence of a film structure laden with facts and subjectivities alike. As the shooting of the former workers' testimonies progressed, it was possible to sense the emergence of two discursive lines. One, on camera, very much based on the good memories of the good old laboring days at the plant, and another one off camera, where labor accidents, difficulties, as well as funny episodes were mentioned. Our control over the narrative was clearly limited, not only due to ethical reasons, as we cannot manipulate the content of the interviews, but also because we could not force social actors into disclosing information that they were not comfortable unveiling before a camera. Therefore, the best course of action is to respect what every single actor shares and try to find a common denominator when revisiting the totality of the interviews. While this is still a work in progress, it is possible to infer that the nostalgic discourse prevails.
The recent closure of the last plant, still standing, along with the existence of a large number of living witnesses, were decisive cues to set the documentary into motion. The work of filmmakers like Luc de Castor, as in Rêve d'usine, 2003, Michael Moore, Roger and Me, 1889, Stephen Bognar and Julia Reichardt, American Factory, 2019, on deindustrialization narratives, served as reference. However, the realities portrayed are quite different from the one that Watermark is to disclose. For instance, the industry depicted in Watermark has already been pronounced dead, and the story will be told in media res by those who have observed the end of its life cycle. The plants are empty industrial spaces whose only hope is reconversion.
Notwithstanding, their mark in the region is undeniable as they position themselves solemnly along the river Nabão, as water is an essential resource for paper production. While reflecting upon the relation of paper and water, we began to realize that this industrial compound is itself a symbolic watermark, in the sense that it stubbornly defies invisibility and stands as an industrial fingerprint to the region.
Overall, the past is a good place for both managerial and working staff because it is a memento itself of an industrial culture built on and out of the illusion of permanence. Faced with the dismantling of a way of life they had taken for granted, social actors tend to put aside the hardships resulting from the strictness of class relations and hierarchy in favor of the illusion of stability. In pursuit of a narrative line that dodges nostalgia and challenges the dominant tropes of industrial pasts in the West, we will probably have to intertwine the social actors' testimonies with context so as to avoid relying too much on memory, as it tends to be selective.
Finally, a Janus-faced approach will be adopted as far as Tomar's industrial past is concerned. While allowing screen time to the past, the future will also be given some consideration for its reformative potential. Rather than focusing on loss, Watermark aspires at pointing towards regeneration, for cities and communities are dynamic, and as such they tend to adapt and create their own resolves. In other words, they move on.